Today I'm going to show you a quick mod for this overbed table from Argos. It's made by Drive Medical, according to the instructions, and it costs just under £25 actually, and for the money it's absolutely fine. Very good solid metal. It's got a nice solid worktop and doesn't need really any tools to put the thing together. However, one of the problems that seems to crop up in most of the reviews, the tabletop itself does not overhang the bed that far. And there's a couple of reasons for that I can see now I've actually bought it. The first one is the actual way that the thing goes together. As you can see here on the diagram, what we have is two separate frames in effect, and that slots into here, and this obviously allows you to adjust the height. Now you also use this to adjust the angle if required. So yeah, I mean it all works, so that's great. But it has these very large tightening bolts, and what they do is obviously grip the pole inside there, you can just see. The trouble is these are actually located on the inside of the frame. So in other words, this spaces it away from the bed about 2 inches. Now there isn't much you can do about that. However, I can see that it's going to be quite easy to create more of a overhang of the worktop if I sort of just demonstrate how it works. So that basically slots through these brackets and has these press pins. Don't know if you can see that. So basically push that in and then that will slide through and it locks. What we have to do is push it through that one and then through to the one at the other end there, like that. Okay, so we've got all of this overhang on this side plus the 2 inches. So basically the amount of table that ends up going over the bed is sort of from that point onwards. So we've lost around, just getting a tape measure, about 5 inches, 6 inches valuable tabletop space that you'd rather have over the bed. So what I'm going to do is show you a quick modification we can do very easily using actually my sort of budget toolkit, which I'm going to show you in another video, which is a good idea for people that just need sort of basic tools around the home. Anyway, that's for another day, but it just sort of shows the benefit of having something like that around. So if you've just got a straight edge or one of these little plastic rulers, and all you want to do is center it on both of these screws here. Just mark a line along here like I've already done here. And do that obviously for each of the brackets. As you can see here, I've done that side and that side there. And then what you want to do is obviously remove the bracket. So that's that one. Okay, so that's the brackets removed. Now the next part is really down to personal preference, how far you want the table to extend over the bed. Now from a safety point of view, I wouldn't think about gaining too much because obviously the further out the weight is, the heavier it is, or the greater the load on the frame. And it does say it's rated up to 15 kilos, but we can quite safely sort of move this back a little bit here. So if I just show you at the base here, I would tend to keep this frame just inside the worktop, which looks quite neat. Now to do that, or an easier way of doing that, we'll just lay the bracket over the frame like so, between the two pins that it sort of locates on. And if we just sort of offer up the hole there over our line, we can just put a little mark like so. That then gives you the distance, or where we need to basically make a new hole for the screw. So lay that over the edge like so, and then just take the measurement and obviously transfer that to each of these lines and put a little mark. That way we know that each one is going to be exactly the same. Now ideally what you'd want for this part is a bradawl, and I do have one, but it's in my tool collection in the shed, which is the whole point of having this little indoor toolkit. So a cheap's way of doing that is I've got here a selection of screws. So I'm just going to take one of the larger ones there and a hammer. And if we just put that over our mark, like so, and just give that a tap. And same again. Like so. Now that gives us 4 sort of pilot holes to locate our screws in. Now if you've decided to move it even further back, in other words that the worktop's going to sort of sail past the end of this frame, then I would suggest that you also move this bracket here back as well, just to increase the strength. Because obviously the narrower this gap here, the more it's liable to sort of flex on either end. But for this sort of distance, I think this will work out fine. So all we need to do now is screw the brackets back in. I'm just going to move the camera slightly, just so I can do that. Now, because they're self-tapping screws, you shouldn't really need to drill pilot holes or feel the need for a cordless screwdriver, but you know, if you're feeling weak, no one's going to care. Now, if you want to get a bit of extra grip, just to make sure they're fully tightened. Okay. They ain't going to go anywhere, which is just as well, because you need that to be firmly secured. And then basically we can now put our top frame in, like so. Now that's nice and secure, and as you can see here, we've gained basically that much more overhang of the table where we need it over the bed. So that turns something that's, you know, pretty okay into something that's much more useful. And for the price, you know, it's under £25. I don't think you can go wrong. Sure, there are more expensive models, and if you was needing one more long term, then perhaps they would be a good investment, or maybe for an elderly relative. But this is just for my wife who's recovering from an operation, so I'm sure this will go down very well and be quite practical. Okay, here's our modified overbed table, which I've now brought up to the bedroom. It's in intended location, and if I just put it over the bed like so, you can see what it looks like. So yeah, the modification, as you can see, has made a huge difference, because most of the tabletop is actually over the bed, as you can see there. Now, how it comes supplied with the original fixing holes, it's somewhere about there. Still very usable, but obviously anything that you put over this side would mean that the patient, as it were, would need to lean right over outside of the bed to actually get to it. So really this just means that everything that we put on the table is a lot more accessible and easier to get to, which ultimately is the whole point of the thing in the first place. Even with the modification, it's extremely sturdy. I can push quite considerably on there. That's not going to break at all.